VHS Files contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised. Happy Halloween and welcome back to the podcast. How can I help you tonight?
I shot him 6 times.
Wait, what?
I shot him in the heart.
All right, calm down, buddy. Who'd you shoot?
The boogeyman is coming.
Okay. I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight, okay?
You don't know what death is.
It's showtime.
So what do you want to do tonight?
What about pizza and movie night?
I want to rent a movie.
Let's get this pizza movie night started.
I want to go to a good video store so I can get a good movie.
Hello, and welcome back to the VHS Files. I am Josh.
I'm Jenny Lou.
Jason.
I'm Jason, a.k.a. Michael Myers tonight.
Eric.
I am Eric.
And tonight is our episode 8 Halloween episode for spooky season. And for our spooky season episode, we have a special guest. I'd like to welcome Mr. Nathan Simmons from Two Drinks and a Haunting podcast.
Hey guys, how's it going? Oh my gosh, I forgot what it was like to have an audience. That was kind of cool. Welcome.
So how's everybody doing tonight? Is everybody good? Feeling all right?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed-a-roo.
Man, feeling great.
Halloween's next week. Let's bring it on.
So tonight we're talking 1978's Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, which is a very, very big movie in many regards for us as far as being of age of watching horror movies, and one of the things that kind of drew us into the horror genre. This one being a very, very important one to me. I know very important to Jason, Nathan. Jenny saw it a little later in life, I believe, but she's come to respect it just as much as I do. This is one that's on the same level as me as like Jaws. I mean, it's
Oh wow,
it's like a
that's huge coming from you.
yeah.
Them
I mean,
spotting words.
I've seen it probably as many times as Jaws, and it got me through my childhood. I mean, which is weird for it being a movie about a psycho killer, but it's just
We all got to have role models,
right.
Josh.
But it's just it's so effective. So I mean, let's just go ahead and talk about our memories with this. I don't remember when I first saw it, but this was just one of those things where when I was discovering the horror genre, and this movie just encompassed everything that I loved about horror. It was creepy. It was dark. The Michael Myers mask was just so blank and emotionless, and it really genuinely had you scared of the guy that was on screen. And that's just what wrote me in. And I watched it many, many times as a child, and the sequels to alike and all of that stuff. Jason, how about you? Because this is your baby. I mean, he's currently wearing a Michael Myers coveralls and a mask and all of that stuff. He is decked out.
Oh,
He has a real knife.
I even have my Dr. Pepper, so I can do my famous shot of the whole Nick Castle mask off Dr. Pepper shot.
That's great.
I take that picture, I think, yearly. That's how much I love this movie. I mean, I don't think we have enough time just for me to talk about my love for the movie. We got to let everybody else talk. But
all right,
like
Eric,
Josh
it's
said,
your turn.
Josh. Oh man! But like Josh said with Jaws, I mean, this is my favorite movie. Not just in the horror genre, but this is my favorite movie.
Nice.
I've loved this movie since the first time I saw it. I mean, in a previous episode, my first horror movie I remember seeing was Friday the 13th. But later, a few years later, I come across this movie. It's like, ooh, it's got a big pumpkin on the cover. I love Halloween anyway. So I rented it and watched it. And my mom loves John Carpenter movies too. So we just carried on with this movie. And as you can see, like I said, I'm sitting here in a Michael Myers outfit. I got Michael Myers, memorabilia on the wall, everything. This is my favorite. So I'll stop now and let Eric get a word in.
Now,
I'll interrupt you though.
I know for a fact Eric just saw Halloween for the first time very recently. Is that right?
Recently in life, yes. Not recently to the day, but yeah, I as I've said on this podcast before, I didn't watch a lot of horror as a kid. I had to play catch up once I hit high school and stuff like that. This one I didn't see until even later. But I have become a massive John Carpenter fan, and I do love Halloween Although it's not my favorite Carpenter film, but I do love it. So I'm looking forward to talking about it. One question I wanted to ask both you guys, Jason kind of answered it, but what did you see? Did you see Halloween before Friday the 13th, Josh?
I honestly can't remember. I think because Jason was a little more animated is why I took to him a little more. And I think this is jumping ahead a little bit before we really get into this series, but I feel like the Friday the 13th series as a whole holds up better than the Halloween series does. But as far as a movie goes, like, and it is much as I claim to be a Friday the 13th head, this is by far my favorite slasher movie ever. I mean, it holds a special place in my heart. So
it changed the whole genre from day one.
And there's just certain aspects of it. I mean, like I said, this one doesn't really go for comedy like Friday the 13th would. This one stuck to a pretty serious note, and I think that's what keeps it kind of where it is today, and what keeps me maintains the creepiness about it. So, Jenny, I know you're the other newcomer.
Yeah, I think I probably saw this in high school. Definitely before Friday the 13th. Yeah. Because I thought it was like a little more tame in some ways than Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I remember liking it right away. I really like Jamie Lee Curtis because I'm basically her in the movie. Like, I was like the quiet, studious kid, and I wasn't the one sneaking over to the boys' house or abandoning their babysitting duties.
You were covering for your other friends.
Yeah.
You're a good person, is what you're saying.
But she'll burn one if you ask her to.
I just hold this in a very high regard for a horror movie, although it is not my favorite horror movie.
And Nathan, our guest, what are your early experiences with Halloween?
So I wasn't allowed to watch horror as a kid, which is why I'm always fascinated whenever I hear Josh and Jason's stories of growing up watching, hardcore slasher movies. I had to kind of weasel my way in by watching TV edits or catching them when I wasn't supposed to, and then just kind of slowly tipping my hand that I've watched these already, so can I rent the rest of them? And then a lot of that happened in high school for me. I saw Halloween has a interesting memory for me because it was either the night of or at least the weekend that we moved into the house that my parents and I lived in, and I hooked up a TV, turned on FX, and the first Halloween was starting, and I just sat there kind of transfixed watching it. And the funny thing about the first Halloween is so much of it is based around atmosphere, so there's not a ton that gets cut when it's shown on television, and it's still scary.
Actually, it's funny is that they had to add to it.
They did,
to make it.
That's a whole
almost. I think there's almost 12 minutes they had to go back.
Right, just so they could have
time.
extra ad space, and they had to cut around a lot of PJ Souls shots later in the movie, but but I was fascinated with it, and it just immediately at the time I was kind of surprised that I hadn't been allowed to watch it before, because I thought it was, like Jenny said, it's relatively tame compared to what would come in the 80s in the slasher genre.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of my gateway into slasher movies. I told my folks I'd watched the first Halloween, and I was like, it was a really interesting suspense film. We had a kind of a conversation about it. My dad, who hates slasher movies, even loves Halloween. Yeah. It's a well-constructed horror movie. And it's, I think, probably in my top 10 favorite films of all time. It's also not my favorite John Carpenter movie, but it kickstarted that, along with watching Big Trouble in Little China at a young age, was this is my guy.
Oh, I figured you were going to say Ghosts of Mars was your favorite.
Oh, I mean, it's my that's my third favorite.
That's a stab at
It's my 13th favorite.
I think it's John Carpenter's 13th favorite too.
Well, let's go ahead and play the trailer and get into this.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
like the POV from behind the mask.
Yeah, it's good.
Michael? Halloween.
Seems like a nice enough kid.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
the reveal that it was a kid was always something that blew me away. All right, so Halloween was released October 25th, 1978. As we're recording this is the 42nd anniversary. We're recording this on October 25th, and it's been out for 42 years today. So
Happy birthday, Mikey!
And it was directed by John Carpenter, coming off of Assault on Precinct 13, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, with a budget of $300,000 to $325,000, turning in an overall box office of 60 to 70 million estimated. So,
Cha-ching, motherfucker.
highest grossing independent film of the time.
And I think it wasn't unseated from that title until the first Ninja Turtles movie came out.
Really?
No, it was with Blair Witch.
Well, Ninja Turtles, then Blair Witch, because Ninja Turtles was like at the time I was watching this Comic-Con panel and they said that it was the highest grossing independent film of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, weird.
So it was released amongst the likes of Dawn of the Dead, Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, The Wiz, and Watership Down. So
Is The Wiz a R. Kelly movie?
Oh.
No, but Watership Down is for some reason.
So 78, and we'll also be talking about Halloween 2 tonight, which went into 1981. We'll be covering that time span in Back in Time tonight. So Eric, take us back in time.
We're sending you back in time.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Well, Josh, we're not talking about 81. I'm only talking about 78. We'll talk about things next time ahead of time. But 78 gave us classic films like Grease, Superman the Movie, Animal House, and the big Oscar winner that year, Rescue from Gilligan's Island.
Dude, Gilligan's performance is still, like, it floors me to this day.
I don't know. I like the Harlem Globetrotters.
How did they get off
one.
that island?
And shout out to our true crime guest, the serial killer David Berkowitz, son of Sam, is convicted in 78. And cult leader Jim Jones tells 900 members of his church to commit suicide.
What a wild year.
It's a bummer. People who didn't join cults were staying alive with the Bee Gees. or jamming to releases by Van Halen, The Who, Talking Heads, The Stones, and Springsteen. There's a lot of good music that year. The year also gave us Garfield, Reese's Pieces, The Blues Brothers, and the debut of the classic yellow Lego Man.
Nice.
Thank you for saying Reese's Pieces.
This was just a discussion on your live stream.
Okay, listen. My wife
Reese's Pieces
is an offender of, I believe, what you're about to talk about.
The Reese's.
We just
Reese's?
talked about that on
The
my
Reese's,
show on the
yeah.
episode. Yeah, where my co-host says Reese's Pieces, and
that's what my wife
and
says.
I was like, is it because it rhymes with ETs? Like, why are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, Reese's Pieces is proof that you're saying Reese's wrong from the Reese's Cup. Now you know, because Reese's is supposed to rhyme with pieces.
All right, so we're talking ET tonight. But Halloween, fun fact is Jason, Nathan, and I all saw Halloween in the theater together a few years ago.
Yeah, that audience sucked, though.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, the theater we were going to smelled like feet and like a dirty sweat sock.
Yeah.
Dirty, rotten beer floor.
I think the theater, like, it had flooded at some point and they never properly cleaned it, so it didn't smell so great.
I saw Interstellar in that theater, and there was a leak in the ceiling. It was a rainstorm outside, and I remember.
Oh, I know that leak.
Yeah, and I remember. I remember it was on the water planet scene.
R. Kelly
and I
again?
thought, oh fuck, they have like really redone their sound system, because I thought it was like so immersive, and then I like.
It was like a 4K or a 4D experience.
4D
yeah, it was
it's wreck ride at Universal.
Yeah. And then I got up after the movie and just went whoosh, like when I was walking out.
Well,
but the cool thing about that was I don't know if you guys, but that was the first time I actually got to see it in a theater.
Same here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'd wanted to, and I remember Josh telling, "Hey, dude, there was the thing that they were making a promotion through it, and they said, hey, they're gonna play this in the theater." Of course, back when I was in Panama City with you guys, we'd like, it's not coming here, and it does. And then me and Josh,
I was shocked when I saw it on the marquee.
Go!
Yeah, because they never participated in those.
Mm-mm.
Some of those were great. I saw, I caught the tail end of 2001.
Oh, hell yeah.
Over in the theater, and then we went and saw, I think, Alien.
Nice.
Yeah, you were saying that. I remember you tweeting about going to see Alien,
Yeah.
and so you could finally see it on there.
I
Alien is
awesome.
Eric's Jaws and
yeah,
Halloween.
absolutely. I just saw Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, on the big screen for the first time last year, and that was
It's
so rad.
cool watching these classic films on screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
So we open up Halloween with this pumpkin with the title cards, John Carpenter's Halloween. Now, Jenny and I were watching this the other day, and I feel like, has anybody, I know Jason's noticed it, but the slit from the nose down to the mouth on the pumpkin. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always thought that was just a mistake, and that's the way they did it, and it was just whatever. So as the camera is zooming in on the pumpkin, and we're seeing the titles and everything, it comes closer and it just stops right on the nose and the eye of the pumpkin.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, the way the camera stops on it, it looks like a knife.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like it could be like the face of Michael and the knife. So I've never really put that together before.
You're reaching with that one.
Yeah,
Jenny
he
said
is.
the same thing.
It looks like the
You are
thorn
reaching.
symbol.
Oh.
That said, though, I do
now you're
love-
getting way down the road here. We don't have any porn going on yet.
I do love the opening credits, and I don't know if you've noticed this resurgence of horror films that are really taking a lot of influence from 70s and 80s horror,
absolutely.
and they are using this font, and I've been noticing it forever. And I looked it up because I wasn't sure what it was, even though I'm a designer, I should know. But it's called ITC Serif Gothic, and you see this shit everywhere now. Notably on Lovecraft Country right now, but also on The Void, The Guest, all these movies that are calling back to that era.
Oh yeah.
I was just saying that
lots
about
of
The
stuff
Void
on
the other day.
Shudder.
It's the same logo.
Yeah. The Void, Void is a modern horror movie that is, it's paying tribute, but it is a fucking good movie.
Yeah, it's great.
That was a good one. Yeah, I agree.
But let's not forget anything though is the music.
Yeah, and we open with the score to this, and we can talk about this for hours, but the fact that this score is played so repeatedly in the movie and it never gets old, just to me at least. I'm sure some people that watch this movie nowadays are like, God, this music.
I
But
just feel like it's the time signature that it's in that makes you super on edge.
Yeah.
It sounds wrong.
It's was it
5/4?
5/4?
Yeah.
I think 5/4 time.
but
It's definitely
and the
different.
way it builds and crescendos and then comes down at the end, and
Yeah.
it leads into the movie so well, into that great.
And as much as the score is awesome, I love the absence of score throughout the film,
Yeah.
where there's just no score and it's quiet, and particularly when they're in the neighborhood and things like that, it's so quiet, it's so empty. They feel so vulnerable out there.
You can
Broad
hear the
daylight
quote
in
unquote
the
lead.
nicer neighborhood than I
Well,
ever lived
that's also
in.
why those little stings, that's why that stands out, because he'll go so long without dropping one of those in, and when it does, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to see something right now.
Yeah.
Or
Yes, definitely.
when he runs and you get that
Oh,
it's that
yeah.
weird freaking noise. It's because it's so quiet, like Eric said. And then
Can we dub Jason into the
Tommy
movie doing
runs
that?
Well, one of those
A full Jason
one
cut.
of those stings hit when we were watching it the other night, and Jenny, she hates the noise.
It was so offensive. I don't know why the other night.
The sort of chainsaw-y,
I think it is that one.
Yeah, high pitched one. Just felt like it was drilling into my brain.
Yeah.
For some reason.
It makes
I
me
think it might have been the one I was talking about.
immediately scared. There's the shot where, when that great shot when he comes out of the shadows, he just slowly starts to form, and it gets me every time.
Yep. And they're gonna. I actually pulled a few clips that we'll get to when we get to those in the movie that kind of showcase that absence of score and the creepiness of where it goes. But and then we get into this opening shot and this one shot tracking, and it's like something, especially as a kid watching these movies, you'd never seen before. I don't even really know if I picked up on it so much as I did later in life and realized that it was supposed to be this one long shot.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, you
just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, because as a kid, you're just watching this whoever go through a room, and but again, the way they set that up, you see just the hands opening the drawers. You don't get any glimpses of the face until the
Hill's
reveal.
hands too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And but we see him spying on his sister, or at the time we don't even know it's his sister, but we see him spying on a girl, on a guy, and they go upstairs. He goes in the house.
Guy lasts 30 seconds.
Yes, women.
Hey, there's a 2-pump chump again.
Women are still not being
That was my
satisfied in this movie.
Jenny, the guys in Friday the 13th fared much better.
I think so.
Than this scenario. Yeah.
There's a guy in
It's
Jason
all
Goes to Hell
bad,
who gets
okay.
it done.
Well, I think
the immediate thing you notice. Sorry, Jason.
No, you go ahead.
Just for me, after watching all those Friday the 13th
Sure.
movies recently, and the immediate thing when you, as soon as this movie starts, is visually you're looking at something that's a higher level of art.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A higher art form.
Absolutely.
Artists at work making something. I mean, just Nathan already mentioned atmosphere. It's amazing what they establish just moving through this house. Just shots of outside. It just looks so much better than any of those movies immediately.
Well, the main thing is too is I mean we find out that it's a younger child, but I mean the height of the camera, you don't think that that's a kid walking around. I mean, because it's obviously higher, like adult or teenager height. You going through and then you see the scissors come out. And you're like, you don't know who's doing this killing. I mean, the shot starts from outside. It could be just a stranger lurking around in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and then you get up to there, and then you see the topless girl, and I'm pretty sure Jenny will give us her, 10-minute dissertation on nudity in horror movies here in just a second. And it's just stabbing with the scissors over and over again, which I thought was
every woman always brushes their hair topless at 11 o'clock at night.
And just their slip.
Yeah. It's the pre-bed naked hairbrush.
I thought that's.
I also do that, but with my beard.
But there's no way that this kid had enough force to kill her. Yes? In the real world, he's
in the real world, yes, but this thing fueled by pure evil and malice.
it's called like rage strength. This his inner rage is evil is just taking over. Crazy. They talk people who are crazy have super strength. That's what it is.
I don't know, Jenny.
He could have thrown it out the window one-handed.
Have you ever tried to dress a toddler that doesn't want to be dressed?
There you go. Ask the man who is a father.
You think you could overpower a toddler? They're just stretching every which way. You can't.
That's actually
it's impossible. And that's a toddler. So.
That immediately hits on why I think Michael Myers is scarier than Jason Voorhees, especially in the early going. Because in the first few movies, you can make whatever for Friday. You can make whatever argument you want that Jason is, just this regular guy who's crazy. Michael Myers is something entirely different. He literally can't stop.
Right.
I don't know. Like right off the bat, there's just something. It's everything about this intro is meant to like throw you off balance.
Yeah. And like I said, we kind of saw this when we were watching the trailer here, which isn't a very audio good thing for a podcast, but you get that reveal of him being a 6-year-old child at the end, so
who looks spaced out and confused.
Yeah, just
and
completely
not even
blank.
sure like what he did. Yeah,
is he supposed to be 6?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, 6 years old.
I got to bring this up later. I'm bringing that up later.
But the way they hone in on that, you see the kid, and then they do the boom shot out. It's a great shot. I love the way they fade out with that, and then you move on into the movie. I was always a little confused. Is that supposed to be were they intending on that to be a still that they're fading out on?
Because they just stare at him.
They just sit there and stare at him. No response.
I think it's meant to be shell shock, but it is a very strange shot.
Yeah.
It feels like a David Lynch shot.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, I kind of think that the whole shot, they wanted to get, all you saw was Michael and his parents, but then you get that pullback shot. It's a regular house in a regular neighborhood.
Right.
Parents dressed in regular business.
This could be your town.
Car.
Yeah.
This is your neighborhood right now happening. And I think that's what they were going for. It wasn't,
Well, so what is it that makes him not human?
So
what I
the
wanna
later
know.
movies make their own explanation, but if we're just looking at it as a one standalone film, I love the ambiguity of it.
So do I.
I love that he's just driven by, I mean, you could just make the argument that he's a crazy person, or you could buy into Sam Loomis saying that he's like the manifestation of evil on Earth. Like, when a guy with a PhD is just like, no, there's nothing scientific about this. He's a monster. Like, maybe listen.
Let me put this in layman's terms for you. He's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Everything we know about Michael is from Loomis. I mean, he establishes immediately and effectively, I think, how scary this guy is. He's not just a guy who escaped. Like, this is something else. It's not your average escaped patient. He's XYZ, and Loomis really sells it.
You get that immediately when Marion tells him like that they're being inhumane, and he's just like, I don't care. Like, I don't want him to move. I want him to be asleep.
Well, what do you want me to give him?
He's not human.
Thorazine.
He can barely stand up.
Thorazine.
That's the point.
That's the whole point of the whole thing.
I'm liking the Loomis.
He's so tired. Loomis is my favorite character in the entire franchise.
Yeah.
And he's, from the beginning, Donald Pleasence's performance is incredible because he could so easily be a crazy Ralph, like a harbinger of doom. And instead he's been explaining the same thing to people for 15 years. They're not listening to him, and he's exhausted.
Yeah.
He just wants it to stop.
Well,
he's the voice of reason. Yeah.
And that was kind of what I was paying attention to watching it this time, is paying attention to Loomis and how he changes throughout. Like, we're gonna talk about part 2 later, and how the first one is a very reserved and somber almost performance from him.
Once he sees what he's really capable of in the outside world, he's frenzied.
I saw the complete shift from what he is in 1 to what he is in 2.
It's so good.
And like, I've got clips I'm gonna pull in 2 that we're gonna talk about.
Well, the one part before we get on to them driving up to Smith's Grove, did anybody watch the TV edit?
Yeah, years ago, actually. I haven't watched it recently.
Okay, well, when you had to add in the time, there's actually a scene before they drive up, and it's Loomis in his younger years in a room trying to talk to the doctors, and he is passionate about.
He's like, you can't
do not let this kid out. They're in a minimum security. He needs to be in a maximum security the whole entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so passionate about lock this freaking kid up away, throw away the key. And they won't. They're like, oh, well, when he's 21, we'll review him and he'll go before a court. And then that leads us into the carpooling.
God, that was that early. Wow.
I've not seen that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't really delved into all the stuff that was cut. I've seen the TV version very few times.
A lot of those were filmed like after the
while they were filming part 2. Because they were filling in story as well. Like, there's a cut scene that they had where they play into the whole sister aspect of what we lead into in part 2, which we're gonna get there. But I love this whole drive up, the conversation between Loomis and Marion. What's her name?
Marion Chambers.
Marion Chambers.
Nurse.
And
Nurse Marion.
She doesn't understand where he's coming from. He's like, it's the law. It's what I have to do.
Right.
But then you get this great shot of the people wandering around in the yard, and then the guy jumps up on the car.
I love the scene in the dark with the I mean, it has such a zombie vibe.
Yeah, it's a George Romero shot.
The people, shuffling around the field. I mean, totally creepy.
Yeah, rain, lightning, and they're just, hospital garb. And then you see this crazy monkey kid jump up on the back.
And it shows you how unprepared for this insanity Marion is, because the first thing she says, she's like, I didn't know they let them out this late or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is as soon as Loomis sees it, he knows he knows what's up. Like, that's how ingrained in this he is like he knows something just went wrong.
Well, and I know we're gonna touch on Halloween 2018 at some point, maybe a little bit.
At some point.
But that's one of my favorite parallels of that movie is Laurie's become the new Loomis, because there's that moment where she says,
definitely,
the bus crashed. I know what this is.
Yeah,
it's not just an accident.
Yeah, it's what I've been telling you guys for the past whatever.
Yeah.
But the attack on the car is one thing I wanted to point out is we talk about how things from this age and how they age now with the UHD and Blu-rays and stuff. I cannot unsee the wrench that's strapped to his hand when he breaks the window.
I just saw that for the first time.
Did anybody notice that?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Okay.
No.
I noticed it when it was on VHS.
Really?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Jason,
well,
you
don't know
boss.
how many times I've seen this movie.
No, that's
Hey,
fair.
Jason.
But,
Jason,
I mean, you
let's
see
do
it.
what we normally do. Let's explain this away. He just had a wrench.
Yes.
Broke the window with a wrench. Fine.
Yeah. But that was the whole reason when they said they were making the movie. I guess he tried to break it and he couldn't, so they had to put a wrench in his hand so he could break the glass.
How does Michael know how to drive?
Exactly.
Well, in Halloween 6, it's revealed
Well,
that the
he's
man in black taught him how to drive.
He's not human. He can
It's-
just, no.
Yeah, Evil
Well, I mean, he's
drove
been
the
locked
car.
up since he was 6, right,
I'm-
or
Evil
something.
drove-
And I'm gonna go.
He doesn't just drive, guys. He drives well. He drives
he
through
does.
the suburbs. He stops at stop signs. He's very inconspicuous.
He's
The
good.
novelization of the first movie.
Oh no!
Oh no, he went there.
Reveals that
Say no more.
he closely watched Dr. Loomis when he would drive him around, which I was like, in what occasions is Dr. Loomis like taking him to Dairy Queen or
Yeah, if this guy is trying to get him put in a maximum
Right.
security psych ward, why is Dr. Loomis like, here, I'm going to take you for a ride in the country and let's go have a cute little picnic with some cold fried chicken. and
Wait till you see them
just trying to
hold the
get to know
blizzard
each other.
upside down. It doesn't come out, Michael.
Oh, I have to parallel park here. My Loomis is not as good as yours.
In certain places, you can go right on red, but not here.
I'm still getting used to using the steering wheel on this side.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Double
gonna
lines
just chalk it
means you
up
can
to like
pass.
Nathan said, is ambiguity. Like
Yeah.
I just like that none of
Sure.
it's explained.
I love the ambiguity of his superhuman
Yes.
abilities, and I agree that not being explained is effective in making it creepy.
But there are a couple.
I don't know about the
there
driving
are a couple of
ability.
goofy. I mean, they even have to like lampshade that in the movie itself, where Sam's like, someone's been giving him lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really the only time you see him give that pure like freak out moment is when he's dealing with the people he's been
Yeah.
dealing with for
Yeah.
years. He's like, I told everybody.
Yeah.
Like
You know where he's going.
I do kind of question what it is why Loomis understands that he's going back to Haddonfield and wouldn't just like, what is it that Loomis knows
Right.
about Haddonfield that keeps him going? Like,
That's
why he would go there and not just go on a killing
It's
spree
his home.
wherever he is.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's his home, right?
He'd
I mean,
revisit the scene of the crime, but also like.
Well, I guess he does go back to the house.
I think there's so many things that are left ambiguous that end up creating more of a history there. That like if it's not like laid out completely, you're like, oh man, I can't imagine what those two went through together in 15 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it feels like one of those things that's like, because it's not explained, it kind of makes it more compelling, I think.
Yeah.
well, you're locked up at 6. 15 years later or something, you get
Sure.
out,
You want to go home?
you go home, right? You go back to your house. I don't know. It seems pretty.
That's kind of what they're
Straightforward
saying.
to me,
Like
in
he
that
literally
sense.
stood or sat and looked out a window. Just
Yeah.
he was looking to go
Yeah.
home. That's all he wanted to do was go back home.
Hmm.
And again, all right, this is the thing. All right, Eric, we brought this up, the age thing, a couple of times. He was locked up at 6, right?
Mhm.
And they say he got out 15 years later. All right, do the math. Who's the mathematician?
Michael
21.
Myers was 21.
Means he's 47 in this.
Okay,
film, I believe.
he's 21. All right.
Oh.
They through the movie they label him as being 23,
Oh, do they?
even in the credits.
Oh,
even
really?
in the
That's-
credits.
I never noticed
I'm
that.
like,
Well,
I'm
I
like,
haven't.
how old is Michael?
I have noticed that, and it's funny because Loomis says it in part 2. He
Part
says
2.
Michael Myers is 21,
That's
but even
21.
in the credits for Halloween 2, they list him as
He's like-
Michael Myers, age 23.
Myers at 23.
So
Wow, no one.
So this is some
Those departments
goofball
were
in the
not getting
graphics
along.
department.
yeah.
Bunch of yahoos making the credits.
Well,
I mean,
if we're
I can't.
if we're talking Halloween 2, yeah, there's probably a good reason why shit wasn't going right there. But,
Yeah.
so
But then we move on, and now it is Halloween in Haddonfield,
present day or 1970.
or present day 1978.
So then we meet Lori, our heroine of the movie, and like Jenny said, I mean, strong female presence character in this. You you pretty much fall in love with Lori from the moment you see her. She's just your normal average girl next door.
She's incredibly likable.
Yes. Instantly likable.
More likable than any girl in any Friday the 13th movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yep.
And you know, she's just walking to school, doing a little errand for her dad, dropping off a key because he's a realtor. Meets up with the boy that she babysits, and they talk about what they're going to do during the night.
Tommy Doyle.
That sounded oddly too sexual, but
she's clearly a good babysitter,
is,
which is nice that they established that like she's gonna do. He likes her. Like we know that she's a good person, and they established that.
We're gonna pop popcorn, carve pumpkins.
Yeah, exactly.
I was always blown away at how much shit they actually do during Halloween night. Like, you're telling me you went trick or treating, watched 3 movies, popped popcorn, carved a jack-o'-lantern. Like, and number 2, why are you carving a jack-o'-lantern on Halloween night at 8 o'clock at night?
That's how I feel about every Christmas movie that shows the family putting up the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve.
True.
Now, did these kids go trick or treating before going?
I feel
is
like
it-
Tommy
they
did.
and then their parents dumped them on a.
Well, he's
Yeah, well, there's a scene later where Lori sees the children trick or treating, and it's still daylight outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kids start, around dinner time usually. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
just
be
trying to
starting
think
at,
like these kids, like their parents, like just want to go party. They dump their kids on the
Yeah.
babysitter. On
you think it's like a hocus pocus scenario?
Well, when I was little, I would go trick or treating with my parents, and then they would send me to grandma and granddad's to spend the night, and they went out to their own Halloween parties.
To do adult
cool.
things.
They went to those like blood raves from the Blade movies.
Well, that must be what the adults here do, because they're definitely not present during any of this.
Oh wow!
So, and when she goes by the house, he's in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, we have that
and
music.
you get that breathing inside the mask.
And the
as
music
well.
sting,
I love
where
that.
it's that loud sting of music where.
And when you take out the revelation from the second movie, it really plays like that's just the moment he saw her and decided I'm gonna follow her for the rest of the film.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He
I mean,
saw
'cause
a teenage girl and just got triggered.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
it was the original title was The Babysitter
Right.
Murders. So therefore, it's like babysitter, child, and you just happen to bump into me.
Right.
I choose you. I choose you. I am going to stalk you for the rest of the evening.
But then Lori's in school, and she's looking out the window, and she sees him standing there.
Yeah. I love that sequence.
It's creepy as fuck.
It's creepy, but also the teacher is giving this lesson about fate.
Yeah.
And they say
Yeah.
that fate is immovable.
Uh-huh.
And it's Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Like,
I love
he's
it.
the fate. He's immovable.
This is one of my favorite tropes in horror films. This is something that they go back to all the time, like especially in the Halloween series. It happens like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But like Nightmare on Elm Street, there's the whole discussion about Hamlet's ghost that like ties into like, and everyone. It just seems like there's so many horror movies that like have that. Oh, that's so weird that the lesson that they're at like ties thematically perfectly to the like the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Donnie Darko
Oh yeah,
too.
Donnie
They
Darko.
get into
Yeah. But I man, that's maybe one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's so good.
It's really good.
And they kind of have a callback to this in It Follows.
Yes,
too,
yes.
Where she's sitting in,
which
in
is
the
very
classroom and
indebted
she
to
sees the old
Carpenter.
lady.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of
The
course.
scenes where they're walking the sidewalks and all that was it brought me right back to the scenes where the
Absolutely.
girls are walking around talking in this.
Well, the
We're
kid
at the
also
school-
mentions the boogeyman.
Yeah, we're at the
should
school where
mention.
Tommy's leaving school with this pumpkin
Yeah.
and he's being bullied. Here we get another 70s, 80s movie
Yeah.
where bullying is going on.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm glad there's no bullies anymore.
Yeah.
Good thing we moved past that.
Candy.
He's so innocent.
I love him.
And I rewatched Halloween 2018 in preparation for this, just to see if there was anything to mention, which there is.
Yeah.
And like they reference those kids in that movie.
Lonnie Lamb.
Lonnie, yeah, like Lonnie,
He's
the
gonna be in the next one. In
yeah,
Halloween
like
Kills.
they're already bringing back these characters that they just subtly hinted in these.
And Tommy, the character of Tommy, is going to be in
Anthony
it.
Michael Hall.
Yeah.
Yep.
You mean it's not gonna be Paul Rudd?
Paul Stephen Rudd. Put
Paul
some respect
Stephen
on
Rudd.
his name.
You say his whole name when you
That's how
speak
he
to
was
me.
credited in Halloween 6.
So what do you think the point of following Tommy was for that short tour? Like, he doesn't follow him home.
No,
Is it just to be creepy?
I think it's just
The kid leads you to the babysitter.
But he doesn't follow him home. That's the thing. Like,
I think there's this really interesting thing that Carpenter does with a lot of those long tracking shots where you get to see this whole neighborhood before everything goes bad. I mean, it really really sort of gives you that quiet suburb feel before, so that you recognize all of these landmarks when they're running screaming through them later.
Yeah.
Or it gives you it starts to feel like a bomb is going to go off at any second. So it's
he does this in Precinct 13 as well. You get the lay of the land a bit before.
Which that movie is super underrated. It's fantastic.
I didn't see Assault on Precinct 13 until much later. And then watching it now and having the affinity for Halloween that I do, you see
There's a lot of DNA
so
there.
much of the DNA from Assault on Precinct 13 going into Halloween.
Which is the reason Donald Pleasence was in this, because his daughter liked the score for Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah.
He was just like, he's like, my daughter's in a rock band and she likes your music, so I guess I'll do this movie.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest get they could get for this. Other than, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, even though she was the daughter of two very famous people, was an unknown, relatively cheap to get. So Donald Pleasence was the get for this movie.
And only because Christopher Lee and I think
Peter Cushing
turned it
both
down.
turned it down.
Yeah.
Yep, they both turned it down.
So could you imagine Peter Cushing, like,
Wild.
doing the Loomis?
Well, supposedly the reason that he didn't take it was because his agent was convinced that playing Grand Moff Tarkin was going to like revitalize his career. So he was like, he's offer only, like he's not going to come in and read for this. Like,
wow.
It was wild.
We get our scene where you have Loomis and the gravekeeper or the groundskeeper for the graveyard, and this whole lead up with this guy with the hacksaw.
I want to know what happens.
Oh yeah,
I love that they cut the story off, no end to it whatsoever, and it's just forever gone again. I think
it's like Egon drilling a hole in his head.
Right. And I think what would be very smart of them is to kind of follow that up in one of these quote unquote sequels they're doing nowadays. At some point, you get the ending of that story from someone in one of the new movies.
Danny
would be
McBride
great.
playing the gravekeeper.
Yeah, because that would be the part for him.
Yeah, this guy had a fucking hacksaw.
So we're jumping all the way to the cemetery already. We missed Linda and everybody.
Totally.
I couldn't remember if
missed Linda. Totally.
I couldn't remember if that was before or after the graveyard scene.
Oh no, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I love the introduction to them, and they seem like they are good friends. And this is apparently where Deborah Hill came into the production and the writing.
So natural.
Yeah, and that was her main part of this. She was kind of the cheerleader for the girls.
Yeah,
and really kind of gave them their own thing to stand out in the movie. I just love their banter. I mean, they sound like high school girls.
But they're really mean to Lori.
But they are really mean to Lori.
Like,
I mean, did you have your little clique like that, Jenny, with all the girls?
I don't know if I had a click. Like, that doesn't sound right.
someone who did theater in high school, I had a clique with a bunch of mean girls.
But they're really mean to her, and she's supposed to be their good friend.
Right.
Well, they do say a few
they
things
bust her
that
chops.
are mean, but it seems like they're trying to get her out of her shell a little bit. But yeah, I know what you mean.
We kind of have Linda, who is the free spirit,
Yeah.
You know, kind of like, hey, I want to sleep with whoever.
The cheerleader.
Yeah, and then Annie is kind of the free spirit, but her dad is the local sheriff, so she's that, it's kind of like the preacher's daughter thing, where
closet bad girl.
The closet bad girl. She's smoking weed in the car, even though she runs into her dad later, and stuff like that. So then you got the three of them like that. The good one, the closet, and then the standard, which would become later in the 80s slashers, is the standard, I guess slut of the group is the best way to put it.
Is it
wow,
the best?
I know
Jason.
it's not very feminine, but that's what they would say in the 80s. So
She just wants to
Jason's the
express
slut of
her
our group.
sexuality.
I am the slut of this group.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
So is this where Michael pops out behind the bush, or is he just
Yeah.
watching?
Well,
the
he
wedding?
drives by in the
He-
car first.
Drives
and
by in
they-
the car.
they-
That's right.
Yeah.
Speed kills.
I love the like, and I'm not sure if this is the exact moment, but there's some like handheld camera stuff that feels very like voyeuristic.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're like watching these girls, and it
Especially
makes
with the heavy
me feel
breathing.
icky when yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's just like
it's upsetting.
yeah, and it's broad daylight. You know, it's some of the creepiest parts of the film are broad daylight on the sidewalk.
Absolutely.
because that's the scene right after that is when Annie and Lori are
Right.
walking down and they see him. He is
It's
there.
because
Straight up see him.
Then he's
This
gone.
is when you're supposed to feel safe. Is walking out in
Daytime.
the daylight where there's a bunch of people, and somehow I think that's what the brilliant thing is about the first act of the movie is it makes this bright sunny sidewalk
Yeah.
seem like the seediest place you could possibly be.
Right.
Absolutely.
Then after that, we run into the her dad, and we get one of the best quotes in the movies, I think, and it's still people say it over and over again throughout the Halloween.
yeah.
It's because remember he scares Lori, she turns around, bam, right into the sheriff.
I wasn't trying to startle you.
Yeah, it says everybody's entitled to one good scare.
And he's in from Precinct 13, right?
Yes, yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember.
He is reprising his role in the next Halloween film.
Yeah.
Also, he's still kicking.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh, that's very
Yeah.
He's got to be what 80.
He's in his 80s.
So I like when they pick up Lori but this is one thing that I was confused. I was always confused about as a kid and even into my adult years. And I think we just figured it out this watch. I always felt like they drove so far away to get to this house where they're babysitting.
Yeah.
But it's obviously in the same neighborhood as the Myers house, which is in the same neighborhood as Lori's house. I think they were just driving around smoking.
I think so
Yep,
too.
they're driving in circles.
Yeah.
And
It's girl time.
I never really picked up on that
Yeah.
before.
I love that.
And then they run into her dad again.
Yeah.
Dude, her dad is busy
Yeah.
man
Yeah.
at the hardware
Well, you
store and
know,
everything.
Lori's a good girl. She smokes a little pot.
Yeah.
I know. She's the best. She's genuinely the best.
She's not even your quantifiable like final girl because she breaks the rules.
Yeah.
That
She's
was-
she's a regular lady.
And I like that car too.
Yeah.
The
It
red
is a
car
nice
with the
car.
red interior. Very
No
cool.
way Dad would
And-
no way Dad wouldn't have smelt that in the car.
Right.
By the way.
I mean, he's he's the shittiest police officer.
Yeah. Roll the window down. You know, it's like, woof.
Get this man a canine unit or
Are you
something.
sure that? No, I'm not gonna. I was about to mention a character in the second movie.
Jenny, talking about how they're mean to the girl, and you know, you're saying you relate when they're talking about the homecoming, and
Yeah.
like Laurie, I didn't know you think about stuff like that. Man, that is bullshit. Everyone thinks about stuff like that. I remember people saying stuff like that to me that were maybe like a little more outspoken about their, their whatever romances and things as a kid, and I was a little more shy. And it's like, I hate that, man. When somebody's like, I didn't know you think about stuff like, yeah, I'm completely asexual. I'm a plant life, you know.
Like
Yeah,
for
right.
me,
Never think about it.
my closest friends are the ones who like shit on me the most. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I will never get roasted worse than I will by like my closest friends or my significant other. Like,
Josh.
Well, that's that's where Jenny's aspect of this. I mean, Nathan has a sister. Eric, you don't have any brothers or sisters, right?
No,
So I mean,
don't, no.
you and Jenny have the single child perspective of this, but like
Sure.
Jenny didn't have the big brother or the big sister that would like pick on them to toughen their spirit up or whatnot. So she gets.
Are you calling us weak?
No,
Josh?
I'm
Is that
not.
right?
But
I think it's what he said. I think
But
it's
but
what-
Jenny's
like you
feels
haven't
like
built any character.
Fight.
I feel attacked, and I'm not strong enough because I didn't have siblings to handle it.
Well, you know, like I have a fairly close work environment, and
Right.
they all grew up with siblings, and
Sure.
they tease me mercilessly. And I'm like, I don't like it when you do that. And
You
they're
want me
like,
to take care of them?
they're like, but we do it because we love you. And I'm like, that doesn't compute.
the
not
aspect
my
of
love
tough
language.
love. Yeah.
I buy presents when I love someone.
Please just give me food. And
Why is a manhunt a bad idea? He says that it's going to spook him, but at the end we only catch him because there's a manhunt.
Yeah, I
really,
think he
right?
didn't want to have I think he didn't want to like have a bunch of cops out on the street during Halloween or something.
I guess.
It's so weird living in a
But
time.
Loomis seems to talk him out.
It's so
of
weird to look back on a movie when a cop is like, "No, we don't want to show excessive force." And living in Year of Our Lord 2020, we're like, "Wow,
Yeah.
Sheriff Brackett's a pussy."
So are we supposed to understand that Michael is the one that broke into the hardware store?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, knife, rope, and a mask.
I feel like that's
Wasted
out of
that
the
rope.
time. I feel like that's out of the timeline though, because he obviously has the mask when Laurie's walking to school.
I think that's a. I think.
So
do you think it happened earlier in the day, or do you think that's?
So the hardware store alarm has been going off since 8 o'clock that morning,
You know
and they're
what?
just now getting to it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Was there an alarm, or was it just broken into?
No, there was an alarm going off because
There
it
was an
shuts
alarm.
off
Okay.
during the conversation.
I think I buy that.
And he yells.
This is a
too.
town. This is a town where nothing happens.
So the alarm was just going
the
off for
idea
8
of-
hours.
I think so.
I mean, it's not like a. Yeah, I mean, it could just. It's literally like an audio alarm,
Yeah.
just a ringing.
It's a
right?
bell
Like, it's
ringing,
not,
yeah.
Like,
Because
it's not ADT. It doesn't call
Right, right.
ADT immediately, right?
but it was fairly loud because they're shouting in the conversation in the car, and that's where you get the great joke with Annie. There's like hard living with a cynical father, and he goes, "What?"
Right.
She goes, and he
right
shouts too, because right as the bell cuts out, he shouts at her.
Yeah.
So we're to think that he got the mask from the hardware.
That's what, because he says he stole a mask and a couple, or some
Oh, a
mask and a
mask,
couple
a
of
knife, and
knives.
rope.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I didn't watch this.
It might have been well, because
I remember nothing.
they I think they kind of address that in one of the later sequels. They go to the general store, the hardware store,
Yeah.
and it is kind of like a general store. It's not something that's
Yeah,
super clear, but like I mean, that was kind of a thing in like the 70s and 80s and even a little bit into the 90s where department stores would just randomly have like some kids shit like there.
But the main thing is if people paid attention, the movie could have been over, because here's Loomis talking to the sheriff, and
Yep.
here's Michael using great turn signal and traffic
Yeah.
law and everything.
Wonderful
pulling
driver.
up and driving right behind
Yeah.
Loomis.
That's right.
It took me a long time. Like as a kid, I'm not paying attention to that. But then as you get older and you start watching that scene, you're like, why are they lingering on him so long? And then you notice the car drive past him in the back.
I didn't notice that until a very recent viewing.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have tint
Nope.
No.
to hide
No.
him.
Yeah,
rolling
he's
around
literally
in there.
driving around in daylight with a mask on, just driving a stolen
I
car.
wish he was in a lowrider. He's just got the like, hydraulics going, and Loomis is
Three-wheel motion.
Yeah. And
Bam.
Loomis is just like, I don't
the-
know where he
the-
is.
He could have the lowrider with the score
Yeah.
playing.
Oh boy. Oh.
But it's been 15 years and not one single person has ever listened to Loomis.
No,
I mean,
No.
I would also.
Well, maybe.
I would also
He's
have a
kept
hair
him locked
trigger.
up till now, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Well, I mean, that's what's funny is later, I mean, we're getting to the point, but Loomis pulls out a gun because he's so distraught over this kid. And it's like, he pulls it out in front of the sheriff.
Hides
So
my
the-
sense of security.
So the sheriff is not going, like, that should be the first alarm is, okay, well, he really thinks a lot of this guy is enough to carry a fucking firearm with him. You know?
Yeah, because that's when they go back to the Myers house, which is pretty much about where we're at anyway, where the sheriff and Loomis goes to the house to go check it out. And that was it a piece of gutter hits the glass, and he pulls that gun out.
Yeah. Well, he's already killed, right? He killed the nurse lady or the lady in the beginning.
Right,
Michael.
She
has?
didn't die.
In
She
the
gets
car?
she
Oh,
gets
she
thrown
didn't die?
out, but he has killed the mechanic and taken his
That's where he gets the overalls.
overalls.
The overalls. Okay. So I mean, he has killed
and a
at this
dog.
point. It's
He
not
ate a
like-
dog.
Well, that's where we get is in the house, and they go, "Is that a dog?" And
That's how you know this guy's
He
a real
got
asshole.
hungry.
That's actually my note right here. It says, Michael is the worst. He kills dogs.
He sure does.
He kills multiple dogs in these movies.
Nathan, can you come back for all our Donald Pleasence films?
Yeah, when you guys do
Really?
Escape from New York, the one episode of Twilight Zone, You Only Live Twice.
Prince of
Darkness.
Darkness. We need to do Prince of Darkness, and you can do that.
Oh, we will do Prince of
That movie
Darkness,
is
and you
so
need to come back
good.
for that one.
I can talk for hours about Prince of Darkness.
You're coming
Okay.
back for that one. We'll make sure. of
Wait,
it.
weren't we doing Fantastic Voyage too? Because you remember he was in that way before all this.
So when they get to the
Yeah,
Myers house and they're walking through it,
Mhm.
is really like impeccable for like setting the tone of what this is all about.
Yeah.
And like Eric was saying earlier, like the absence of score through the walk through the house, and then you get the dialogue after the gutter comes through the window where you startle Loomis. He pulls the gun, and then you start to get the story of his time with Michael.
Why he's so scared.
Yeah. So I got a clip of that I'm going to play here.
Yeah, I am. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this
And how the
blank,
score comes
pale,
in halfway through it.
emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Evil.
Like that is the shit.
It's great.
And he's so reserved in it too. He hasn't reached that point of like
And
absolute craziness.
And that's
he
the
just,
thing is by like the 4th or 5th movie, he's like pulling a gun constantly, giving these speeches. I mean, that's like there's a lot wrong with Halloween 5, but what is great about it is just the continued heightening of Loomis's speeches.
That's probably the craziest he's ever been in.
Charlie, Michael Myers is outside.
His measure is what makes you take him seriously here too. You know, like he's, you know, that is so important to the film, the Loomis character selling Michael Myers as a threat, because otherwise he's just a guy.
I think that what helps in that regard is that at this point, Loomis doesn't know that any person has died.
Right.
You know, that's
like he's found the truck, but he doesn't see the body.
Right.
You see the body.
There's
as
a lot of
viewer.
heightening. I mean, it can be argued that he's like at a 10 in Halloween 2.
Yeah.
But like at that point, he's found 4 bodies and counting.
Well, that's what I'm going to get to when we get to Halloween 2 is the sudden shift in him and how it can be taken as him just going off the rails as an actor and hamming it up. But after you've seen the shit that he sees in this, after shooting a guy 6 times, and he gets up and walks away.
He doesn't know that Michael is. He doesn't know that Michael is basically
superhuman.
Like superhuman yet at this point.
I think that there's a certain amount of. It's the kind of performance you get out of someone who doesn't necessarily love the script.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he signed on, kind of not really feeling the whole vibe of the production. It took him a little while to for him and Carpenter to get along,
which is funny considering he goes on to like
be the face of the franchise.
Yeah, he is the champion until he passes away.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is like him having to find that for himself.
Yeah, and
there is just this. He has this quiet intensity, like he is trying to understand what's happening along with the character.
Yeah,
you know? It's an incredible performance.
Yeah, I kind of pick up on that too this time around. Is like he doesn't even know what the extent of this evil is.
Well, and you know, people who love the franchise like we do, like it's hard to imagine a reference point for Sam Loomis kind of realizing what's happening, because by episode, you know, by the 6th movie, he's just like, you know, been fighting this evil for 20, 30 years. And it's just really great to see like the origin of that here.
Right. So we move on from there to establishing the babysitters, the homes. We meet Lindsay, who what's her name?
Lindsay Wallace.
Lindsay Wallace, but who's the babysitter?
Annie.
Annie.
Yeah.
Annie's watching.
Annie's babysitting
like,
Lindsay doesn't give a fuck.
Lindsay just wants to watch fucking horror movies, bro.
I identify with her more than any other character in the movie.
Like I think before Winona Ryder, she was our like very first goth like horror movie girl. Like
she's a
Lindsay
proto
Wallace.
Fairuza Balk.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
They remade The Craft.
I bind you, Nancy. I bind you.
We'll talk about that one at some point too. But I love that she's just, you can't separate her from the TV. She's watching the horror movies, and you see Michael creeping outside, watching Annie on the phone.
He's a creeper.
He is a creeper, but this is where we see him kill the dog, which really puts me on the bad side of Michael Myers. But I don't even think Jason or Freddy have killed dogs, have they?
No, and there's so many animals in the Friday movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we thought he
We
killed.
thought
the
he
dog
killed
at
Muffin
one time.
in part two.
Yeah, Muffin lived.
Yeah,
Well, it was a dead dog.
But there was
though,
a dead
right?
dog.
I mean,
You know, he throws that dog through the window in the final chapter.
That's right.
Yeah,
he
that's
throws
true.
But we were talked about that in that episode. Like, does he throw the dog, or does the dog just jump out like peace out?
It is the weirdest shot in the movie.
It is. Yeah.
I was losing it when y'all were talking about that because it is the scene that always sticks out. That and Crispin Glover's dance are like the two best things in that movie.
No way. But during all of this is when I really noticed a lot of major ADR going on in this movie. Like nowadays, and again the heightened senses in which we're watching it, like HDR and stuff. Like I really saw where the ADR was in this now, which I kind of hate that I know what that is and how to pinpoint it now because it ruins movies for me. But yeah, there's quite a bit of it going on here.
Can we appreciate the song that Annie makes up? Oh, Paul, I can no longer stall.
No keys.
But please.
Please. With Carpenter, those shots, I mean, you don't see Michael's face, but you see him. He's shooting outside from like, hey, this guy's standing outside here watching you change clothes in the kitchen, watching, and then watches her go and do the laundry. And you always, and I'll admit, when I was a kid, I didn't see these, but when you go back, Michael's standing in the
whole
background
time.
almost all the time.
Yeah. It's great.
And you have to look. It's either a shadow or you actually see the mask just hang,
Or
like
just the
when she's in
sliver
the laundry
of the
room.
mask. Yeah.
When she's in the laundry room, the door closes, he's not there, and then when it shows her again, you look behind her and he's standing outside the door.
Jenny, that particular one Jenny noticed this time around, she was like, whoa.
Well, and then now I'm waiting for it every time, and it somehow is at a different point than I'm expecting it, because Carpenter's so good at making you expect things at the wrong time. You know what I mean?
But this movie is the reason why, like, when I watch a horror movie now, I'm constantly looking for something in the background.
Yes.
Because of Carpenter instilling that in me in this movie.
Well, especially if it's like an off-center shot.
Yeah.
I just watched a film called not The Curse of La Llorona, but the La Llorona, the Shudder exclusive that just came out.
Yeah.
And there's so many shots like that are purposefully like a little bit off-center, like kind of wasting like a side of the screen, but it's because it's drawing you over to something else.
Right.
And I think so much of that is done in this movie, maybe for the first time,
maybe
along with like Black Christmas and stuff like that. Did a little bit of that.
Well, Black Christmas was just before this, I think.
4 years.
Just before. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, all of that establishing that is great. When he's looking at her, when she spills the butter or whatever it is on her shirt, and he's watching her from that little patio door, and he knocks the plant over. I put in my notes, I was like, Michael got a boner and it hit the planter and knocked it off the hook.
I think he was just being a little
He's like, oh shit, he has to move.
Well, he invented the whole thing. I heard a noise. Let's go outside.
Right.
I swear, kids. I mean, that's how it is. Hey, we hear a noise. Every movie after this is like, hear a noise. Let's go upstairs. Let's go check it out outside. No, how about you just stay where you are and just be fine.
Right.
Don't go outside because a dog's barking or a plant fell. Just leave it alone. We're good.
And the entire laundry thing.
Yes, I was just about to
is
say.
all just a fake out. It's just the you think she's about to get it for like.
Oh yeah.
But
it's like just goes and goes and goes.
Also, who does their laundry at somebody else's house?
I do.
You do?
Who puts on the parent of the kid that they're babysitting? She put on the kid's dad's dress shirt.
That is wild.
Conveniently in the kitchen.
Like if I got home and like the babysitter was wearing my dress shirt and like nothing else, I'd be like, this is
Boner Town.
I'm about to say, you're like, well, the wife's still at the party.
Damn, Jason.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm just saying. It's
you
the
really are
70s
the
and
slut of the
80s.
group.
You really are.
You really are a slut.
I'm the single guy of the group. So
Linda.
And I love when Paul calls on the phone, Lindsay answers and he says, whatever, he's go get Annie for me, and she just hangs up the phone on him. Like everything Lindsay does in this scene is great because she hangs up on him. She goes and gets her out of the laundry room, and she goes, "Don't tell anybody about this." And as soon as the phone rings, she picks it up. And she goes, "She got stuck in the washroom. She'll be here right here."
She's an
Lindsay's a
icon.
badass bitch.
Yeah.
Thank you. But then again, another shot. Annie's on the phone. Michael's standing right outside the door, just standing there.
I want a
watching
movie
her.
about Lindsay and the little brother from Teen Witch. They're the same.
We're going to talk about Teen Witch at some point,
Yes.
Nathan. Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I know you don't.
I love the shots from Laurie's house, not Laurie's house, but where she's at, across the street, and you're the boys, looking out the window, that kind of stuff. You're seeing Michael outside,
Just standing there.
Yeah.
because that feels something you can relate to, looking out your window, looking at your neighbor's house.
With the kids that have
Out there,
instilled in him that the
you know.
boogeyman's coming for him and all that shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets threatened with punishment for telling the truth that he saw somebody across the street. Well, you need to stop, or you're
I
gonna
believe
go
you,
straight to
Tommy.
bed.
Well, it's not only that, but then when they work out the whole thing, when she's gonna go see her boyfriend, and they walk across the street, her and Lindsay go across the street over to where Laurie's babysitting, and Michael just pops up from behind the car. And he's like, "Hey, I'm just crouched here behind the car. You can't see me. I'm not here." And he just stands right up as they walk by.
Did you guys ever walk home in the dark, like from your friend's house?
Oh yeah.
And
No.
you feel kind of scared and like look over your shoulder, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get major vibes.
I did that a lot.
Well,
in
that's because of
college
this
specifically, which is like,
yeah. Oh, even older. Yeah, even older. For sure.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot because of these movies. Even as I was a teenager, because you watch horror movies, you're scared. We all have some part of us, even though we could talk about, "Oh, I'm not scared," but there's moments that scare us. But you go into that whole mind thing is like, all right, how many times I've seen Halloween? Where would the boogeyman be standing?
Right.
Oh, he's standing right out of frame over here. He's in the shadow of this tree, and you look as a
If
teenager.
I'm walking home, I'm not walking right down the edge of a building where there's about to be a turn. I'm going to leave a little space in case somebody's hanging out.
Right.
And it's because that's what it is. Michael Myers is telling you, "Hey, I could be out here. Pay attention." That's what he's doing.
And so Annie pawns off her ward.
Yeah.
Onto Laurie. Yeah, Laurie will take her double the babysitting.
What I
duties.
love is that Lindsay is on board for, like, she's just like, I get it. You gotta go get some.
I wanna go play
dick."
with
Like,
Tommy.
Well, that's
like Lindsay
probably not the
like
first time it's
understands what's
happened.
happening. It's so funny to me that she's just kind of like, okay, you're going to go see your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes to all this effort that
Yeah.
I feel bad that she doesn't get any.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it leads up to our first major character kill.
Yeah.
And back when this first came out and watching it on VHS and whatnot, I always had a really hard time seeing what was going on in the car. But I love how they set that up with her singing her song, walking to the car, the door's locked, she goes back for the keys, comes back, and the door's open. Like,
It is
just that little subtle part of it is.
And the windows are fogged up. They were clear when she went. Now they're fogged
There's
up.
so much. There's so many times that John Carpenter like drags these scenes out because you're expecting the kill to happen 3 times before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And this is in 78.
Yeah.
Now we're a much more informed audience, and we've seen
Ready
this
for fake
done
outs.
1,000 times. But yeah, he was still not wanting to take it too obvious.
Yeah.
And give us a couple false moments and then hit us.
I think.
And go ahead.
Finish your thought, Eric.
It was a new thought, but I was going to say I love how he just chokes her out with his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
And
a very like raw. He just.
You
that
think of this
kill
as a
is-
slasher,
Well,
but
he
there's not a
finishes
lot
her
of
out with a
slasher.
knife.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Is he actually
finishes
slits her
off.
throat with a knife?
I always forget that.
Yeah.
If you're watching, like when that other stinger of music hits, you can barely see it if it's on like it's not high def. But
It's
now
the
watching it,
motion of his
like
wrist.
he reaches over and you can see it go across her
Right.
neck. And then in part 2, when we find Annie, she's got her throat
See the
slit.
blood.
I think one of them was Annie.
Yeah. But then again, it's the Carpenter thing through this whole movie. It's what you don't see.
Yeah.
Right.
This whole movie is what you don't see through everything that makes it even scarier.
That's why the first Texas Chainsaw is so good.
Yeah.
And I love the big synth blast when Michael.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. from there, we go back to Loomis at the house, and I've got a clip of this too because you can see the absolute joy in Loomis's face fucking with these
The
kids.
bullies have arrived at the Myers house,
Yeah.
and they're like daring each other to go up to it.
So you got the kids going up to the house.
Chicken. Go ahead, Lonnie. Go in.
Hey. Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
So the kids run away, and the shot of his face, that shit-eating grin on Loomis's face.
Okay. All right. Pause it right here,
He's
Josh.
very
I want to hear.
satisfied with himself.
I want to hear. I want to hear Nathan do this. I want to hear Nathan's Loomis voice do that scene.
Hey. Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
Dead on. Dead
I
on.
like to imagine
Well done.
that one of those kids is Laurie's like son-in-law from Halloween 2018. The one who's played by Artie from Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think Lonnie is one of the kids there.
Yeah.
And Lonnie is the dad of the boyfriend.
That's right.
The Bonnie and Clyde boyfriend. So
Yeah.
they're there. Like,
Wow,
it's
what a useless character.
yeah. And the fact that they brought it back in too.
Yeah.
Like, but that shows how much they thought about going into the
Putting the continuity.
the original
together
film in the at least somebody was thinking of continuity at this point because
know
they
what-
don't later.
I don't know what you mean. This series is flawless.
Well, yeah, but even right
Tight
there,
as a drum.
Yeah, you get that you get that shit-eating grin from Loomis. He scared him, and then the sheriff scares the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Best.
Walks up right behind him, and he's just like, "Oh!"
He's lucky
And
Loomis.
yeah, he
didn't
only
shoot
gets
him
a
in the
moment of
face.
happiness.
Yeah.
He knows he's armed.
Loomis is trigger happy.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, Sheriff.
but even then, the sheriff's like, "I'm sorry, I think you're really wrong here." And he goes, "Well," or no, it's like, "What? You got to give me something else here." And he's like, "Well, what else do you need?" Like,
Yeah.
Death has come to your little town,
"Death has
sheriff.
come to your little town, sheriff."
Yeah, enough fancy talk. Good sheriff.
So I love that we cut back to the kids watching TV and they're watching The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little.
And Carpenter uses the score from that movie in the background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Effectively in the movie as she's walking around, and you've got that tense music from the coming out of the
And I
television.
think that might
which
be
is
the
such a
first instance I've seen of something like that too, where like the movie, the events of the film are playing off of what's happening on the television too. Even the dialogue, there's like, "Oh, he's outside," there's little moments of dialogue that seem to like
right, that meta. There's like a meta.
yeah, it informs
thing
what
going
Tommy's
on.
scared of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to scare Lindsay. So like he's now the bullier. He was being bullied earlier. Now he's bullying Lindsay. She still takes it like a champ though, because even after all this shit goes down, he sees the boogeyman and all. But Lindsay's like, "I believe you, Tommy."
Oh my god, the look on Laurie's face where she's like, "These fucking kids," like she has that little shrug and laugh. It's so good.
I think you can see like Laurie hitting the boiling point at that moment because she's like, "I'm watching this other fucking kid.
Yeah.
I was covering for my friends who are next door, banging their brains out.
I got to figure out what to say to Ben Tramer tomorrow."
Yeah.
Yep.
Little do we know,
Right, he's gonna get blown up.
Spoiler.
Is he the guy that she likes? Is the one in the mask?
Yeah, the one that gets
That's
We're
amazing.
getting ahead of
I didn't
ourselves.
realize
It's such a good tie-in. It's so
That's incredible.
needlessly
Yeah.
cruel.
That could,
He's so brutally killed.
that could be something that they tie into the new movies too, though, because in that continuity, Ben Tramer's still alive.
There's like a Ben Tramer scholarship fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope he gets hit by 4 cars in Halloween Kills.
At a 4-way stop, everybody just goes at the same time.
But he has to wear the knockoff Myers mask
Yeah,
too, the one with
with
the white hair and everything.
It looks the mask looks silver. Like we're
Yeah.
already into
You can
part 2,
buy
but the
that.
mask looks silver.
You can buy that mask too, the Ben Tramer. Halloween mask. You can buy that.
That really tickled me.
But after this is when we lead up to Linda and Bob showing up at the
Totally.
house.
Yeah.
Totally.
you
And
like?
then, all right, and I know Jenny's got a. I mean,
Another
we
quick
all have a
sesh.
problem with this. This whole back and forth with Linda and Bob when they get up, talking about going inside. He says, "Well, I'm just gonna rip your shirt off." He says, "No, don't rip my shirt off. Then I'm gonna rip her, and then we're gonna rip Lindsay's clothes off."
Yeah,
too."
that's
Yeah,
what
that's
fucking
I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
Went a little too far
Bob.
there.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
I even wrote here, pedo Bob.
Yeah.
Pedo Bob.
I think that's he's credited as.
I think it should be pedo Bob. What? He gets the point later, literally.
I mean,
but
despite his unfortunate choice of words
Yeah.
there,
He's a comedy genius.
Linda and Bob,
Bob would like to apologize for his.
because
Yes.
at least Linda sounds satisfied.
Yes.
oh,
First
there you go.
satisfied female in a horror movie.
And she's also just like, go get me a beer.
Yeah.
Like Linda is a boss bitch.
Yeah.
I love her so much.
Totally.
Totally.
Totally. All right. So how many times did she say it in this movie? I mean, I know.
I know.
What do you
I
guys
don't
think?
know. 17.
Eric, you got to guess?
Close.
Jenny, you got to guess?
Because there's
20.
there's a drinking game to this. They say that when you're watching this, you take a drink every time she says total.
Oh.
She says it 11
11
times.
times.
Wow.
For her.
So he says, "I'll be right back," doesn't he?
Well, no. Well,
Who says I'll be
They
right
had the whole
back?
makeup out thing, and then he goes to get beer.
Yeah.
Well, he says,
But someone says, "I'll
Don't
be right
get
back." I can't remember who, but I
dressed.
made a note of it.
yeah, what does he say before don't get dressed? He goes, I'll be back. Don't get dressed. I don't know if he says I'll be back or not, but
I wrote, "I'll be right back" in my notes.
My
but
name
I
is
did
Bob,
not-
and I like to throb. I think that's what he says.
Don't get dressed.
And we see how strong Michael is, right?
Oh,
When he
dude.
when he lifts him
just
with the
lifts that dude up.
What?
Yeah.
With one hand, and
Because
that's
up to this point, we don't really know.
what he's
Much
capable
about
well,
of.
Bob deserved what he got
Yeah.
because he's just drinking these people's beer and
Yeah.
rooting through their cupboard and eating their food.
having dirty thoughts about Lindsay, and this whole scene is one of my favorite scenes from the whole
Absolutely.
series because we get you see how strong Michael really is, stabs him through there, but then the pullback
Head
shot
tilt.
of it, yeah. Oh, dude, I got chicken skin right now. the head tilt of him, and they said that was he ad-libbed that.
Yeah.
Oh, very
Nick
effective.
Castle, he ad-libbed that whole thing of just where he's like, I'm just gonna kind of look at what I just
Yeah,
did
there's
here.
an
This is
interesting
pretty cool. I just-
story that Nick Castle tells about getting very little direction from John Carpenter
Yeah.
to the point where most of his direction was just go from one marker to the other, which kind of informed the sort of mechanical movements he makes.
Yeah.
But that
Yes.
head tilt, I would say, along with the sit up at the end, are the two most iconic movements that
Yeah.
Michael makes, to the point where like when Jason does it in a couple of the Friday movies, it feels like cheap.
Yeah.
It feels like it's aping Michael Myers,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jason also lifts people and pivots.
That's true, but I'll allow it. But watch yourself, counselor.
Jason also kills people.
Okay, well, this is too much. Jason also had a mom.
And then you get Michael's sense of
Well-
humor to go back up to
Well,
go.
no,
to
I wanna
see-
talk
What a
about-
little prankster.
No, the Bob scene, like the physics of that do not make sense.
No, not
Okay.
at all.
Because there's no
Well, the one thing, the knife would have to be 3 foot.
Right.
So
That's
I know
a
that.
knife.
Now, and even if that were the case, the sheer body weight of his torso would make him fall over. So I love it. It is an iconic shot. I
Sure.
love the point of the shot, but the physics of it really bother me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, probably the most iconic scene,
Yeah.
like Nathan said, between that and the sit up.
Yeah.
That's the Michael Myers too.
There's so much of this movie that feels built off of tone more so than logic, which
Yeah.
I think is a thing that this movie and parts of the second movie do to great effect. Is just it's more of like, what a striking visual this is. I can't imagine having to face this in person.
Yeah.
A lot of Carpenter is
Absolutely.
like that, I think,
Yeah.
too.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of Christine that's like that.
Yeah, so he dresses up like a ghost.
Yeah.
Michael has a sense
Did
of
he,
humor.
did he cut the holes in that sheet?
I
He
hope
had to.
so.
I think he had.
What a
to.
little scamp.
I just wondered if he took Bob's costume or something, grabbed a costume, or did he make that?
I don't.
I think the only thing he would have taken from Bob was the glasses.
Yeah, I think he made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were.
Did he drink his
I wonder
beer?
if they were
I would've
designer
drunk the beer.
sheets.
There's not a lot of Michael doing that in the whole series, too. Like, this is like a very peculiar
it does
moment.
feel unusual. Yeah, of him just doing something that isn't because he seems like such a force of nature.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
Which is why I was kind of cracking up at the driving too. It just seems like, why would you drive around and stalk these people? Why not just walk right at them and kill them?
Yeah.
But it is a great moment and a great visual of knowing that's
my
him.
girlfriend and I just recreated some of those pictures for Halloween cards. We did a Halloween photo shoot, and I wore well, she's not topless, but I wore.
I was about to ask that. Like, wait,
I wore a sheet
what are we
with glasses
recreating?
on? And I was just like, "Can I please put the glasses on the front so I look like Bob Michael from Halloween?" Yeah, it's a striking visual, especially just that it's such a quick cut because it goes from her to showing him standing in the doorway. Yeah, and it's just it's such a. It is specifically a shot designed to make you go, "What the fuck am I looking at?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I almost find the fact that Michael can drive without any prior knowledge of driving more believable than that he would have a sense of humor to put a sheet over himself
It doesn't
to go kill somebody.
It especially doesn't jive with Michael as we come to know him in the rest of the series.
Yeah.
But for that first movie, it's such a fun sequence.
Well, we'll talk about it in part 2, but I think they kind of pull the same little scenario as this in part 2 in one scene, and we'll talk about it when we get to that.
Interesting. Okay.
But Linda is not having it. I mean, she's there, she's ready to go, and then
she's like, if you haven't brought me a beer or more dick,
Yep.
let's stop.
She says,
You see anything you
I'm
like?
calling Lori. This is going nowhere.
I love her so much. Linda does not suffer fools.
And we also get the line, "Can't I get your ghost, Bob?"
Oh yeah, that's good.
But then this is when the shit really starts to go down. We hear the phone call between her and Lori.
Sure.
I love that they set this up earlier in the movie too, with Annie calling and chewing, and then they do it again, and they were able to play off of that a little bit. That's very smart.
Yep.
Now I get your famous chewing. Now I get your famous squealing.
Right.
And it just, and to be completely truthful, it sounds more like an orgasm than someone being choked to death.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, maybe Lori was like, "Damn, Bob's doing that to her. Maybe I should."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
hit Bob up.
You know
later."
what's so funny is that also implies that Linda's done that a ton to her, like just to be she's gotten the case of the
God,
fuck
you
around.
always call me mid coitus.
Why do you call me in the middle of coitus?
Every single time.
And the best part is when the killing is over and then Michael picks the phone up and holds it up to his ear.
Oh yeah.
That shot just makes me crack up because I don't know why I find it so funny that Michael would hold the phone up to his ear like that.
It's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And there isn't a single visual like it in the rest of the series to me. Maybe in Halloween 3, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's not part of this series.
I understand.
The only thing I ever get those two parts with another movie was Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm your boyfriend now.
Oh, the tongue.
Sure.
Yeah.
Comes to the phone. The tongue.
So
I was waiting for Michael to do that. Come on, speak, man. Do something.
So now we get the lead up of her walking over to the house and finding the bodies.
Yeah. Again,
well, you forgot Loomis saw the car before that. Remember, they go back to Loomis at the house, and he actually sees the car on the street.
Right. Yeah.
And see, me and Jenny were talking about this because I feel like Michael is a little bit of a prankster now because he pulls up to the houses right where they're at when they get to the houses. And then that's the last time we see him in the car. So he must have moved the car at some point during all of this.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that had me confused is the neighborhood is them driving around so much. Loomis is literally close enough to see the car wherever Michael parked it.
Oh, sure.
So potentially like Loomis could have seen Lori walking across the street to this house and none the wiser that this is what was going on.
Right.
Just some, onlooker at night watching somebody walk across the street.
Yeah.
And I like how dark the neighborhood is, and how they're just the photography of it all. Our boy Cundy.
Yeah, Dean Cundy.
There's areas of complete blackness going across so it's like a sea with islands of light, basically, and you're just trying to get from one light area to the other, and he could be anywhere,
that is one of Dean Cundy's greatest strengths. If you look at a movie like he shot Jurassic Park, and like the way that they use flashes of light, particularly during like thunderstorms or something like that, he's so good at drawing your eye to exactly the spot that you need to look at. That's why those shots, like Michael, when he leaves the garage and he walks around the side of the house, that shot is so terrifying. It's so good.
Yeah.
You talking about the one where he's carrying Annie after he killed her?
Oh, that was what I was about to bring up, is how much of this Michael does in right out in the open.
He's
because it's
like
Halloween.
He's daring them.
Like it's the perfect setting for him to do what he needs to do.
Again, Halloween 2018. That's why that scene on the street is so good. That long tracking shot. Because he's just walking freely in a town that should be scared of someone dressed exactly like that. Like, it is the one time when he's given free reign.
But yeah, we get Lori walks across the street to go check on Annie and Linda and Bob and everybody else.
And so she knows her friends are pranksters. She thinks this is all a big prank and whatnot. But then when you get to the bedroom and you see Annie, laid out on the bed with the Judith Myers headstone, that is.
And Michael's created like a tableau art installation. Yes, he's got a tableau set up. And that is really like
to the point where her hair is like splayed out, sort of like Judith's was. I mean, again, this is a trope that is created here. Think about you guys just watched so many movies that end with Jason having set up a bunch of people to suddenly fall out of somewhere.
Body booby traps.
Especially Bob, who was apparently just chilling in the attic.
So I'm going to play the scene where she goes through she's already found Annie. And this, in my opinion, is probably the greatest shot in this entire movie. It's very visual. It's going to be difficult to kind of go through on a podcast, I think, but we're still going to talk about it nonetheless. But she's found Annie, she's found Bob, she's found Linda, and then you get this scene right here, where she's leaning against the doorway, and you see Michael's face just in the shadow.
It's so good.
So now, like,
that's my favorite moment in Halloween 2018. Also, when they recreate that shot
with
Lori.
With Lori,
Oh my God, it's so good.
They do a lot of that in that movie. They recreate, like, it's all vice versa with Lori taking Michael's spot.
The last act of that movie is perfect.
It's good.
Yeah,
it is very good. It suffers in other places.
Yes, correct. I agree.
So, but that, I mean,
let's not talk about that.
But just that scene where his face comes into the light, and I've seen all the behind the scenes where the way they had to shoot that, like they had to gradually turn a light on to get it to come on.
Even the craftsmanship is so sublime that somehow even in new HD releases of the film, it is still a perfect shot. It still doesn't tip its hand. It's impossible. When I bought the Blu-ray of Halloween, that was the first thing I wanted to know, was how that shot looked, and it's still perfect.
And I mean, that if anything about this movie is what made this movie stick with me, is that shot.
Absolutely.
Just because it is the creepiest thing in this movie. So, and looking at it now, with such precision as he's had with murdering people so far, you think he could have just took her out right then and there. He goes for the shoulder. Now, I don't know if we're supposed to assume that she zigged when he zagged, and he missed and got her arm instead.
Yeah, because she's a little off balance.
It's like, we could have had a very different ending to this.
Work with.
But the fact that she falls down all the way down to the first floor, and is able. There's a lot of that coming through this and the next movie, where it's just pure adrenaline moving her through this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think that she does scared so well.
Oh, she's unbelievable.
It's a true scared. Like, it's not like screaming at the top of your lungs and running around. She's pretty much paralyzed in some instances with fear.
Yeah.
At the sounds that she makes in particular are so effective.
Even when she fights back, it is a moment of desperation.
Yeah.
She's flailing. The fact that she manages to get a couple of hits in is lucky.
Mhm.
And it's played that way too.
And this is and this is where we really start to see where this superhuman aspect of Michael comes from.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He starts punching through doors, and you know, we've already kind of got a glimpse of it with Bob's kill, but then, you know,
She gets that needle in the neck.
she
too.
gets a damn sewing needle right in the neck, and he just, you know, of course we have the knitting needle, and you know, it's our fake out,
Yeah.
of course, but still, like he starts to take all this damage, and he keeps coming back.
But he does this thing physically every time he gets hurt. That's sort of like a son of a bitch. Like he seems annoyed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily hurt.
Right.
The way he yanks that needle out of his neck is just like, come on. Like I don't know. It's like he's swatting at a mosquito.
Yeah. But you still get the falling over and the playing possum, and then, you know, she looks over the couch with the knife in her hand. Like, her biggest mistake was throwing this knife away twice.
Nice.
She
Yes.
doesn't catch on too quickly.
Yeah.
That was the one time Fiamma was my girlfriend was furious at the movie. She
Yeah.
was just like, "Come on, bitch!" Like,
I don't know that the knife would have stopped him.
Right.
No.
But I
As
guess
we
you don't want
learned
him to
later.
have
Right,
it.
exactly. Yeah. And she
Yeah, and the sit up thing he does, I just wanted to mention that apparently Undertaker got that move from that movie.
I was
You know the
actually
Undertaker where he
wondering
sits
that.
up?
I was actually.
I had to look it up. I was like, dude, that's like what the Undertaker
Yeah.
does. But apparently, Undertaker got that from.
And that move is so good that Carpenter reuses it in his movie Body Bags, also the anthology film.
Yeah.
The killer sits up way in the background, but he kind of looks a little doofier than because it's Lizzie McGuire's dad.
No. Well, that's the segment we need to get to. Is that had Jason tried this? Dude, go try that.
Just sitting
The
straight
sit
up
up?
like that.
Oh yeah.
Dude, even when I was a small kid and a lot thinner than I am
Takes a
now,
Herculean
you know how
effort.
hard that is to do. Dude, I'm like, how do you?
Well,
sit
yeah,
up like
you
that?
gotta have like a counterweight on your legs.
Man,
to
it's
do something like that.
I mean, I don't even know how the
Honestly,
Undertaker did it. In the
Undertaker does it.
Michael Myers passed
Somehow.
the presidential fitness challenge.
Yeah, with flying colors.
And then he was like, "Time for me to start killing."
He gets my vote.
but even before that, you know, she's up there fighting the famous closet scene.
Yeah.
You know, like
Love
he's
the
coming in
closet.
the closet, and I mean, she just like, what am I supposed to do? Let me grab this wire hanger, you
Yeah.
know, and just the
She's
fact that she
resourceful.
yeah, she stabs him
Yeah.
in the eye with a hanger, and then
It's good aim.
manages to stab him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little bitty hole in that
Right.
mask,
No
Right.
one
which we find out later she has really good aim twice.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
You're right.
no one has a closet that empty though.
That's true.
Maybe in the 80s
let's think
or
about-
the 70s.
She stabs him in the sternum, right? It's not like
Yeah,
the
like-
stomach. So
When he drops the knife, she's like,
how
"Ugh,"
hard
like,
does she have to shove to get it through his like
Enough to have some force to pull
his
it back out.
breastbone?
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, like you said, when she gets out of the closet, she just throws the knife down right next to his hand.
Yep.
yeah.
She's like, "Look, hey, I'm gonna drop this right here, just in case you might want to kill me."
But I
later."
mean, she's in the same spot where Loomis would be right now. Is this is just a guy? Like,
Mhm.
Right.
well, I mean, obviously Loomis thinks more than that, but you know,
She's a
That's
teenager
why-
that
Yeah,
was just
I mean-
attacked. She's you can't
All her friends are
you know,
dead.
argue with her
yeah.
judgment.
I think all of her reactions are super understandable, and especially considering the fact how early this is in the genre.
yeah,
It is one of those things where it's so hard to fault someone for not recognizing the tropes that it created.
yeah,
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, because what after this is when she sends Lindsay and Tommy running down the road.
Yeah.
Do as I
Loomis
say.
sees the kids.
Do as I say, and that comes back up in the new one as well.
and
The
in
do as I say.
H2O.
So, yep.
Yeah.
Tommy is so slow getting to the door. She's screaming, "Tommy, get to the door,
Yeah.
bud!
Tommy,
Yeah.
Hurry up!"
this rewatch, I realized Tommy
He is
weak
casual.
sauce.
She should have been yelling for Lindsay. She would have been
Yeah,
there.
Halloween
lickety
6 should
split.
have been about Lindsay.
Yeah.
Like hunting down
Yeah,
Michael
but-
Myers.
Yeah, and then you get like, you know, she sends them out and she's sitting
Sure.
there, and then like we get the setup, and then that slowly staggered walk where you're like, wow, is Michael actually wounded? Because he's staggering as he walks to her, and then gets her out the door, and then we finally get to see Michael without a mask.
Yeah.
adult.
And I love that it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like
just they
the mask
pull
gets
it-
pulled off, and you're expecting this big revelation, but it's not. He just puts it back
Yeah.
on, and you keep going. And
as soon as he
and
gets
that-
on, he gets a bullet.
again
Boom.
with the with the ambiguity, it's just like, oh, that's not even a reveal. We're not even learning anything.
But he's
right
also
now. That's
he's
who he
not
is.
disfigured. I mean, he's got a fucked up eye.
Yeah.
But he's not.
Yeah.
He's just this.
Right.
He's just a dude, and I think that's somehow
Dude,
so
Yeah.
scary that he just looks like a regular guy.
Yep.
He's not burned. He's not a mongoloid
No,
as they call
right.
Jason in
Yeah.
it. He is just a normal guy.
He just evil incarnate.
Yeah.
That's what's so great about it.
And that's a different actor, yeah. That gets
Yeah,
unmasked.
yeah, because they had Nick
Yeah.
Castle doing the shape, but they didn't like
Tony
they didn't like the
Moran.
way he looked. They didn't
Right.
like his face. He didn't look like a Michael Myers
Yeah.
to John Carpenter.
They wanted like an angelic face, or
Yeah.
like they wanted like a handsome, regular looking guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just any normal Joe
Not
Schmo.
an
yeah.
ugly guy.
Was it
Sorry,
Tony
guy, you're too
Tony
ugly.
Moran?
Yeah.
That's it,
Tony
yeah.
Moran played him.
But and then you get Loomis saves the day, shoots him 6 times, falls out off the balcony, and then was it the boogeyman? As a matter of fact,
In fact,
it was.
It was.
The way he flails his arms when he gets shot, almost like he's shocked that it's happened. I like it. It's always stuck with me. It's such a weird.
And because of you
visual.
being a stage actor, I
Yeah.
think that's why. Because that's what I picked up on this watch. Is it looks like when a stage actor would be reacting to a shot.
It looks like
that.
It looks like when you go to like the stunt spectacular at a like
Yeah.
Universal Studios or something. It's like, "Wah!" like you know.
But what's
Well,
the,
it's
the
like
thing is
It's
after
like
the
a
fir-
compensation for not being able to. You
Yes.
can't act with your face,
Right.
Yeah,
So it's like
that's
an
true.
overcompensation.
And that's
with
every
body.
any movie would have someone be like, oh, like you know,
Yeah.
just sort of like act with their whole body, and this guy literally has to because he can't show shock.
right.
That's the thing. It's like even after the first shot, and then you see Loomis come in the room, and he, even though Michael has been stabbed in the eye, stabbed in
He's
the
just
chest,
standing
shot one,
still.
he's just standing there like, "What are you gonna
Yeah.
do?" And then he starts shooting him, and he's doing the flailing part, and then falls off the
Yeah.
balcony. You know, but that's like fact that he's just standing there like, "You think this is gonna stop
Yeah.
me?" That's what he's basically doing.
But this watch made me have so much respect for the way they end this movie
Oh
because
my gosh.
we're so desensitized to it now because we see all these movies that end on a downer, on a bleak note, cliffhanger sort
Yeah.
of stuff. But 1978 for a slasher movie, I mean, Black Christmas somewhat did it with the call, the killers in the house. But the fact that they left you on a note of this guy's still out there.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't the end of this.
To the point where it shows you every location that you've seen in the film.
Yeah.
And tells
Oh,
you,
yes.
like without dialogue, tells you he could be in any one of these places.
Yeah.
And you hear his breathing.
And you got the heavy
Uh,
breathing going on throughout the
Yep.
whole ending there. Oh,
And-
Yep, you can hear his breath.
And sequels weren't a big thing at that point in time. So when you left this movie,
It's so ballsy.
you left. Yeah, it was a really ballsy move on
Particularly from a
Carpenter's
filmmaker
part.
who didn't want to make a sequel. He
Yeah.
just wanted to leave you uneasy.
Yeah.
It's a perfect ending.
And growing up watching these series and the way they've progressed, and having a love for that character,
Absolutely.
you get offended by what they tried to do moving forward. As an adult now, and looking back at what their ideas were as artists, as filmmakers, as producers, whatever, writers, I can respect that they didn't want to go the Michael Myers route and they
Yeah.
wanted to do something different. Now, the reason they didn't, and the reason there is Michael Myers today, is why I love it. But I can only imagine how it could have been different if they actually would have stuck to John Carpenter's original vision, to where he wanted to do this as sort of an anthology thing
Right.
and not continue the Michael Myers story.
Right.
We're going to get to that here in a minute with Halloween 2. He did not want to make this movie at
Right.
all. Like, had no interest in
He
it.
didn't. Yeah, he didn't direct, but he wrote and produced. But yeah, and what's funny, we'll talk about it here in a minute. But I think it's because he didn't want to do it. He actually kind of ruined the movie for the director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He absolutely
Because there's some
did.
stuff he changed that he would not have done in his movie that he did in this one. And I think it was just like, well, I'm going to do it this way because I don't want it to be like my movie,
Sure.
my movie with my name
Right.
on it. And it kind of ruins some of the Halloween for that.
I'm excited to talk
But
about it.
they kicked that they kick that score in, and it ends the movie, and you get your credits roll after all of that. I mean, just a absolute, just mind fuck of an ending for that period of time. Like
when we saw it on the big screen together,
yeah,
there were a lot of younger viewers in the audience who were laughing at a lot of that ending, that last act. And I wonder how much of it is just from not understanding that this was the creator of the thing you think is cliche.
Yeah.
It just genuinely, it's hard to look at it and not think about everything you saw after.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this is cliched because of what you just watched.
Because of the template that this movie created.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I remember them when we were there watching. You hear them laughing. I was like, I just really want to go up there and like Michael choke them out.
I was so mad.